Morning class, welcome to today's live lesson. We are going to be looking at the May-June 2021 paper, the Cambridge paper that students wrote this year. We're going to be looking specifically at the first question, which is the comprehension question. I'll share the screen so we can all have a look at that. May-June 2021, 2 hours, and it is out of a total of 80 marks. When you get the exam, you will have the insert on a separate piece of paper, and then you will have your question paper on which you answer. Let's have a look. There we go. We will be given 3 texts. All texts will have the same theme, and the theme here is bicycling, cycling. Text A is the text we're looking at today. It's quite a short text. Later in the week, we'll look at text B, also about cycling, as you see. And text C is also cycling into the sunrise. Now we're going to have a look at the questions so that we know what we're looking out for. Some of the comprehension questions are going to be very obvious and overt, quite easy to answer. Some are going to require a little bit of inference. For text A, the question 1A says give 3 reasons. So make sure you always read carefully. Some of you often only give perhaps 1 reason and you will then not get the mark. You need to give all 3 reasons to get the mark, the full mark. So you're going to have to give 3 reasons just to get that 1 mark. So it would be a pity not to write down 3 reasons and then not get your full mark there. So remember that. Give 3 reasons people go bicycle touring, according to paragraph 2. So we must make sure we go back and number our paragraphs. So we're going to look for 3 reasons in paragraph 2 why people go bicycling, or bicycle touring rather. The second part says using your own words. In other words, we're going to use synonyms and we're going to paraphrase what the text means by fundraising venture, and they do give us the line number, and broad spectrum, line 7. Now remember, we've got to contextualize. So you're going to go back and read what that might mean in the context of cycling. C says, reread paragraph 3, and they give you what it starts with, so make sure that you've numbered your paragraphs correctly. Paragraph 3 begins with people of all ages and ends with the word air. They want you to give 2 reasons, and it is for 2 marks, why bicycle touring might particularly appeal to people who want to improve their physical health. So make sure you read carefully. There have to be reasons that are referring to people who want to improve their physical health. Make sure, guys, you read carefully, because some of you just forge ahead, and then it would be such a pity to keep losing out on marks just because you haven't read accurately or carefully. D then asks, reread paragraphs 4 and 5. They always give you what the paragraph starts with, so make sure you're on the right paragraph. The good news, ellipses before dark. We need to then identify 2 things, and you can see it's for 2 marks. So always make sure you know what the marks are. You should do when you are training for your bicycle tour. So there are 2 things that we're going to write there. Explain why camping rather than staying in hotels during your tour can slow you down and can slow down your progress rather. So explain why camping rather than staying in hotels during the tour can slow down progress. So that is a possibility. And you can see here they've given you 3 marks, so give 3 reasons. Okay, use your marks to determine how many answers we're given. Unless you have, like in question 1, where it is only 1 mark, however, it is requiring 3 bullet points. So just make sure that you're reading accurately, carefully, precisely. You want to get your maximum marks for the easier questions. Okay, now this question is going to require some inference. They don't directly tell you why why camping would be not so beneficial, but they do tell you why people go to hotels. So you're using a bit of a reverse inference here. In paragraph 6, it begins with bicycle riders, ellipses up to home. Using your own words, explain why some people might not want to go on a bicycle tour. And again here, you're going to need some inference. Alrighty, so that is the bulk of the questions for text A. We're going to go back and read text A, and as we go through text A, we're going to be thinking of what these answers might be. The importance is to read carefully and underline your answers as you go through. Make sure you've marked correctly. So I have marked my paragraphs 1 through to paragraph 6. They've also given us the line numbers, remember, so that can help you to make sure you're in the correct paragraph. Bicycle touring. So what is bicycle touring? Well, it's completing self-contained cycling trips for pleasure and for adventure and the sense of freedom. Remember, the first question was asking us the reasons people go cycling touring. So here we've got it, pleasure, adventure, and a sense of freedom, rather than for sport, commuting, or exercise. Touring can range from single to multi-day trips, even years. Tours may be planned by the participant or organized by a club or charity as a fundraising venture. Remember, we were going to have to comment on what that fundraising venture is. So start thinking about what that might mean in your own words. People of all ages, backgrounds and regions of the world choose the bicycle as their favorite means of travel. Traveling by bike appeals to a broad spectrum of people. The next question had asked us to explain, what does that mean? A broad spectrum of people. And remember, that question was out of 2 marks, so you need to give at least 2 parts of it. What would broad and spectrum of people mean? And is attractive for many reasons. It's an exciting challenge that allows us to explore new landscapes and cultures, build fitness, and experience the joy of breathing fresh air. We get to paragraph 4. The question there said we had to read 4 and 5. And it began with the good news and ended with before dark, so we make sure we're in the correct paragraphs. And they asked us to identify 2 things, and they actually gave us 4. Identify 2 things you should do when you are training for the bicycle tour. So let's read that. The good news is that you don't need to be a super athlete to enjoy cycling. However, you'll want to spend some time training on a bike before your trip. Be realistic about what you can do and create achievable goals. So there's already a reason. A thing you should do. You've got to be realistic. So you've got to have achievable goals. Then work your strength up to riding the same distances daily you plan to cover while carrying the same gear. So we've already got 2 answers there. You've got to work your strength up. How do we do that? By riding the same distances daily that you plan to cover while carrying. There's another reason. You're going to have to carry the same gear. It's heavy. You plan to travel with. And then you are physically ready if you can do back-to-back day rides as long or longer than you are planning for your tour. So they've actually given us 4 things that we should do when training, and we only need to give them 2 for our 2 marks. Let's continue. A reasonably fit adult carrying less than 9 kilograms of additional equipment on their bike can expect to travel an average of 100 kilometers per day on paved roads and still have time to stop and sightsee. In particularly flat or mountainous terrain, the average will increase or decrease accordingly. Okay, so depending on whether you're riding flat or mountainous, meaning terrain, meaning landscape that is quite treacherous, obviously then you're going to increase your speed. You'll need to decide if after your daily exertions you want to camp. So now we get into that question about whether we're going to camp or whether we're going to stay in hotels. You want to camp because it's inexpensive, independent, and closer to nature, or do you want to stay in hotels as they are comfortable, less stuff to carry? So when we get to that question at asked, explain why camping rather than staying in hotels during your tour can slow down your progress. Why would staying in a camp slow down our progress? The fact that it's inexpensive has nothing to do with anything. The fact that it's independent doesn't really have anything to do with things. But the fact that it's closer to nature means you're actually going to be on the floor in a tent. It's not going to be very comfortable. If you're in a hotel, you're comfortable and you have less stuff to carry. So you can infer then that it's going to be more difficult camping because you're going to have to carry more gear, and that's obviously going to be heavy and slow you down. You have to dig deeper. What does it mean if you have more stuff to carry? You're going to go slower, of course. So that's where the inference comes in. And of course, when you're camping, you start looking for the spot a couple of hours before dark. Well, what does that imply, guys? It implies that you're wasting time. If you've got to go to a hotel, you go straight to the hotel. You've got a booking. You don't have to carry all the camping equipment. So we've already got two reasons there. And then you need to also infer, if a hotel is comfortable, you're obviously going to get a good night's sleep, aren't you? Whereas if you're sleeping on a floor or on the 10th floor, it's not as comfortable, and that may well affect your ability to recover each day. You're less comfortable, you're sleeping less, therefore less ability to recover. You'll take longer to recover. So there's quite a degree of inference required there. The first two are fairly easy, but the third one needs you to dig a little deeper. So they want you to think. The questions are not all going to be overtly, superficially easy. The final paragraph 6 says bicycle riders are usually perceived, that means people see them, to be non-threatening. But look at that word usually. That doesn't mean always. And on the whole are treated, again, on the whole, generally, are treated warmly by strangers, especially if they run into difficulties on the road. The chances of something bad happening to you during a cycling tour, a bicycle tour, are probably no different from those in your everyday life at home. So this use of subtle words like usually, on the whole, they kind of put it not into 100% definite, but make it a possibility. And remember, the question said why some people might not want to go on a bicycle tour. And they said we do need to use paragraph 6 for that. So you need to use your own words and infer from this, what might someone who's never been on a bicycle tour be afraid of? Well, they could be afraid of how they're going to be perceived. How are people going to see them? Most people usually don't think you're a threat. You're on a cycle tour. But, some might worry about how they're actually going to be perceived. You also could worry about not being warmly welcomed by strangers. In other words, you're not going to possibly be, open-armedly. You might get treated coldly. So this is a bit of a antithesis to what is written here. That's a reverse psychology almost. So they're saying generally it's not dangerous, but you might be scared that it is dangerous. Generally, people are welcoming, but you might be scared that you're not going to be welcomed. And what about if you run into difficulties on the road? Well, things might go wrong. Of course, you're on a bicycle, punctures, the chain might come off, whatever. So you also might be worried about things going wrong and problems on the journey. Here we go, something bad happening, problems on the journey. You might be knocked over by a car. You might be out going past a nature reserve and some animal bumps into you. Who knows what might happen? So you could be concerned about encountering problems or difficulties. And there might be a higher chance of something bad happening if you get injured or whatever. You're out in the middle of nowhere on this bicycle tour. So that required only 3 answers. There are about 4 we could infer. But, you need to think a bit deeper. As you'll see, Cambridge does like to sort of divide, I might say, the responses into 3 levels. 33% easy, 33% slightly harder, and 33% you've really got to put on your thinking cap. So it's quite possible to pass the comprehension, but if you want to do very well, you need to think deeper. Use that inference I always go on about. Infer what might be meant, what is suggested, what is implied. All those words, infer, imply, suggest, is what we are looking at for that higher echelon or level of mark. Let's go now and write in the answers, and then I shall open the floor to any questions. I don't want to go on with all the readings today because the next reading, which is the summary, is cycle touring right for you, is what I'm going to do in Friday's live lesson. That is going to cover the summary or continuous writing question. As we do say in the course, and as I have said in the past, you will get quite a factual reading, and this one is quite factual, and they then would require you to do a 120-word summary. So that is meaning you're going to have to be quite specific and exact, but we will look at that in the next lesson on summaries. Let's have a squiz now at writing those answers, and then I'll open the floor to any questions you might have about comprehension. Remembering, guys, we don't have an assignment on comprehension. This is a fairly new thing that they've included in exams, but by going through this in the live lesson and then putting up the video, you should be able to see how we want you to dig deeper for your answers that require more inference. Just take a squiz at instructions so you're aware before you go and write exams, especially those of you who'll be writing quite soon in October. We've got paper 1, 8th of October, paper 2, 13th. So you're going to make sure you answer all the questions. Please, guys, even if you're not sure, write something down. You might actually get it correct. Use black or dark blue. Write your name, your center number, your candidate number. Most obviously, they need to know who you are. Use the space provided for your answer, otherwise they don't mark it. Do not use an erasable pen or correction fluid, no Tipp-Ex. Do not write on the barcodes, they need those. If additional space is needed, use the lined pages at the end of the booklet. You always get a few extra pages with lines on it at the end, but make sure if you answer there that you clearly put the question number or numbers, because they're not going to mark it if they don't know which question you're answering at the back of the paper instead of in the space provided. Of course, guys, dictionaries are not allowed. In assignments, you may, and I encourage the use of dictionaries, so that by the time you get to exams, you know how to spell the words that you might not have known. When you get back your assignments, don't just look at it and file it. Please look at where you went wrong. What were your spelling mistakes? Rewrite that word. Make yourself a little dictionary. Be proactive so that by the time you come to the exam and you're not able to use the dictionary, you know how to spell those words you might commonly get wrong. The usual words that you should by now know the difference of their, T-H-E-I-R, meaning belonging to them, or their, T-H-E-R-E, preposition of place, meaning over there. Do not make silly mistakes, because those are going to count against you. Let's start answering. Text A, bicycle touring. Question 1, peculiar marking, I must admit, because they want 3 reasons just for 1 mark, but that is because it's a very easy question. What were the 3 reasons people go bicycle touring? We did read in paragraph 2 that the 1 reason was for pleasure, and you don't have to give full sentences, just the answer. 1 reason is for pleasure. The second reason, we said they were going on an adventure. Try to use your own words. And of course, they were given a sense of freedom. So let's go back and check that in paragraph 2. Again, remember that you must make sure you're in the right paragraph, otherwise you're going to give the wrong answer and be looking in the wrong place. Paragraph 2, here we go. Pleasure, adventure, sense of freedom. Very good. The next question was, what does it mean in your own words? Fundraising venture. So they said that tours may be planned by the participant or organized by a club or a charity as a fundraising venture. Well, that's rather easy. What is a synonym for fundraising? Charity. What is a venture? Well, a venture is a project, a trip, a journey. You need to use synonyms and paraphrasing, and this is why throughout the course, when we are writing responses, we say use your own words. You need to be able to take what is said, not just a phrase as in this in this example, but whole sentences and whole text, and put it in your own words. So I would say that a fundraising venture, it is for 2 marks, so I need to give a synonym for fundraising and a synonym for venture, and I would then choose to go with an event for charity or a project for collecting money. As long as you've got the idea there that event means a project or an activity, and I would actually go on to say to raise money, or you could say for charity. As long as you have given a clear indication that you understand both parts, that it is an outing, what is a venture, that's 1 mark in your own words. What is fundraising? It's for other people to give them money. It's for charity. All right, so you have to be very specific to get the full marks. The next thing was, what is broad spectrum? Now we want to look at exactly what was the context where they used broad spectrum, and let's have a look here. That was in line 7. Luckily, they do always give us the line numbers, so that helps you to find the exact spot easily. 6, 7, there we go. Traveling by bike appeals to a broad spectrum of people. So first of all, what does broad mean? Broad means wide. And what is a spectrum? A broad spectrum. A spectrum of people is a range, a variety. So to get your 2 full marks, you want to say that a broad spectrum of people means a wide variety of people. Variety, selection, range. Use those synonyms. Express yourself, explain yourself clearly. So a broad spectrum means a wide, broad, your 1 mark, and spectrum is variety of different people, I'd even throw in there. Spectrum suggests variety, so differences, different people. That should most definitely get your full mark. If you don't give the idea of variety, of range, because that's what a spectrum means, there's a spectrum of people, it means a range, then you won't get those marks. So you've got to be really specific. They're quite strict. Then when we had to talk about 2 reasons why bicycle touring might appeal to people who want to improve their physical health, they did tell us that we had to go and look at paragraph 3. So let's have a look at paragraph 3. In text A, make sure you're always referring back to the correct text. In an exam, you may be nervous. So it's attractive for many reasons. It's an exciting challenge. Let's see, where does it say people of all ages, right? So we don't care about the exciting challenge. That's got nothing to do with physical fitness. But what it does is it builds fitness. So that is relevant. And it also allows you to breathe fresh air. So someone who wants to go out there and do something different to improve their physical health would like the appeal of cycling because it builds fitness and you're out in the fresh air rather than stuck in a sweaty, stinky gym. So those are relevant. Why would it appeal? It appeals to them because they want to build fitness. A means, let me rather say, a means to build fitness, a way, a means to build fitness. So you can get fit. And if you just said to get fit is also fine. And you could rather breathe the fresh air than be stuck indoors. Okay, so you need both those there. When we get to paragraph 4 and 5, which was all about the good news, you had to identify 2 things that you have to do when you're training. Remember, they spoke about being realistic with goals. We'll go back and look at that. So we do need to set realistic goals. If you have never trained and you're going to do a 200-kilometer race in a month's time, well, you know, your goal is not very realistic, so rather redefine your plan. So you must be realistic, and also you need to try to work up your physical strength by riding every day the same distance that you would be doing on this tour. So you have to work up your physical strength. How? By riding the same distances daily that you would on your tour. They gave us 4 reasons there. We'll go back and look at them. I'm just going to give the first 2. Same distances daily. For any sort of thing that you might be training, whether it's comrades or Tour de France in a cycle race, you need to work up the strength by doing that daily and doing the same distances to get your body used to it, obviously. Let's have a squiz here at paragraphs 4 and 5. Here we go. Achievable goals. We said that was 1 reason. Build up your strength by doing the same daily distances. Aha, another one. Remember, you're carrying gear. So practice with the gear. It's quite different riding without any heavy apparatus if you to riding with a heavy tent or whatever gear you need. And the 4th reason was that if you are able to do those back-to-back day rides, then you are ready for the tour. So there are 4 reasons. We only needed 2. What is the next question? The next question was the one about why camping rather than staying in hotels slows down your progress. Well, we did speak about the obvious, which was that you have to look for a camping ground. So I'm going to go with that because that's rather easy. It's 3 marks, so I would give 3 reasons. Waste time searching for suitable camping grounds. You want a place that's safe. You want a place that might have must have access to facilities. Also remember, you have to carry the gear if you're going camping rather than going to a hotel. Have to carry camping gear. It's heavy, it slows you down. So carry heavy camping gear. Rather write too much than too little, guys. So I would put in the heavy because that implies weight and it slows you down. And then, of course, we also had the point that it's less comfortable, we said, affecting your recovery rate. Your sore muscles are not going to recover as easily on a hard floor than it would on a comfortable mattress. So less comfortable, affecting recovery rate. So you can't recover as well, and then you're not going to ride as fast the next day. Let's just go and look at that, which was in paragraphs 4 and 5. Let's just make sure we've got that there. Paragraph 4, 5. Here we go. The kilograms, here we go to the hotel. Exertions, daily exertions. After your daily exertions, your daily exercise, you want to camp. It's inexpensive, it's independent, it's close to nature, but Is it comfortable? No. Do you have stuff to carry? Yes. And you're also wasting time looking for the spot. So those are the 3 things we did comment on. The final question spoke about us, in our own words, explaining why someone might be apprehensive if they've never done cycle tours or cycle races before. Why would they be scared to do it? Well, we did say that they might be afraid that strangers are not welcoming. They might be afraid that they would be perceived as a threat. And they might also be afraid of what could go wrong. We spoke about all the things that might go wrong, not only to the bicycle, but also to you, like getting hurt. So those are our 3 implied meanings, which I myself must say are not very obvious. So you've got to really sit and think why you would not want to, because they only told you why you would want to. So we said the one reason was worried about being perceived negatively, perhaps especially in a smaller town that you might go through. You also might be worried about things going wrong with your bike. And of course, you might be worried about a higher chance of something happening to you, higher chance of getting hurt, or of an accident. So you're more worried about yourself, your bicycle, and how people are perceiving you. So there we go. That was really quite a lot of work, I might think, for 15 marks, because you really had to think for some of them. Remember that I would go and read the questions before I go and read the text, so that it is easier for you to then know what you're looking for in the text, and you can simply underline or highlight the answers as you go through. Very, very important, class, is to remember to number your paragraphs.